everyone. Welcome to another episode of the India InsurTech podcast. I'm Akshay. Well, India's financial system, whether it is banks, insurers, mutual funds, are sitting on huge piles of unclaimed assets, not because people didn't buy those assets, but because nominees never knew those existed. Today, I'm in conversation with Vishal Mehta, who took this problem head on when he founded Mitt Arv. Thank you, Vishal, for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here, Akshay. Really appreciate giving us an opportunity.
Before we get into the topic, the core of the discussion, Vishal, if we go back in time to 2020, and as much as I've read, there is a personal story which led to the founding of Method. Would be good if you could just quickly walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an emotional story, and I have now have played that so much in my mind so many times. The thing is, I never really thought of being a founder per se, right? I was having a cozy job. I was working at Microsoft in Singapore, earning good income, and this was during the pandemic years itself. What happened in 2020 or 2021 instead was I have a 5.5-year-old now, but he was born during pandemic in December 2020. So fast forward to April of 2021 during the beta wave of COVID, a lot of people around me got affected. Both my parents were hit with COVID. Fortunately, both of them recovered well. But in order to take care of them, I had to move back to India for that time duration while I was still based in Singapore. And the same week, I heard news of one of my classmates passing away. And what shook me really was, or what made me think about it more was, he had a young daughter. And even my son at that time was 6 months old. So I was scared what would happen to my assets if I were to pass away during the same time, right? Because I was like, if it can happen to someone who I have studied with, it could happen to me as well. And this is the time when I was just 33 years old, right? So what I did is the first thing I did, me and my dad, is we made a will to ensure all the assets are well placed and well catered to the right person. However, what I realized during that process is will making was easy. You have thousands of templates available online. You can download anything and do your thing. However, the challenge was it took me almost 45 to 50 days in consolidating all my financial assets into a single place. Because I had some in Singapore, I had some stock options in Microsoft and Expedia from my previous days in US. I had some assets in India. So to put everything together, and we have grown up in a time where any asset we purchase, especially if it is digital, it remains in our inbox. So I had to scan through all my inbox and try to figure out what assets are there. I'm sure even today there were a couple of them I have missed, which is why I realized that this is something which we need to do. If this is a problem for someone who's extremely well organized and someone like me who's tech savvy as well, it will be a problem for larger society. And during the research, what I realized is almost 1 lakh crore rupees is lying unclaimed just in bank accounts. And which is what brought me into say that, okay, let me build something. And that something was Mithaf.
All right, just going a bit further, how did you arrive at this being an idea which you believed in could scale and people would buy into?
When I made this product, I was making the product for myself, right? So I was not bothered about whether someone will use it or not. And in the process of making it, how we made the product is completely another story. But in the process of making this product, I realized that it's a big problem. A lot of people will use it. So the going forward after that, all the product features and the tech stack which we use was made into a scalable platform rather than a simple replacement for an Excel sheet. So it's a product which I started off building for myself, but eventually it ended up being built into something which is more scalable.
All right. So, as you were speaking, if I think of financial protection or preparedness, I think it's a two-part thing. One is just building the asset, and the second is what you described, which is essentially consolidating everything and letting your next of kin or near and dear ones, making them aware of what is there and so on and so forth, right? So, since we're discussing majorly the second one today, uh, as you went through this process and discovering and doing it for yourself, and now having done this for the last many years as a business, what do you think still are major hindrances that this awareness really does not exist?
So, when we started, we initially went B2C. Went direct to consumers. We went to gated communities. We went to conferences, exhibitions. What we realized is that this is not a awareness challenge, or it's not a challenge where something exists, right? It was more of a challenge of distribution. It was more of a challenge of change in behavior. Now, that behavior change cannot happen by going door to door or by going, one person to another person. For instance, we have more sales of our My Legacy book, which is a physical product, through Amazon than we have sales of the core platform itself on the digital version. So the behavior is, let me write it down, right? There's something which is
Yeah.
important. Let me write it down. So we've created a workbook which kind of caters to that writing down mindset. But if we have to create a change in the industry for this, in the consumer behavior, it has to come from a distribution angle, which is where we believe that more insurance products, insurance companies are kind of well structured to do so, and which is where we changed our mindset to go B2B2C rather than B2C. Uh,
Got it. But and I'm guessing you would have come across this and maybe figured this, but in the last few years, there specifically, if I talk about insurance as a context, right, there has been a move to get e-insurance accounts and repositories in place, which in some sense is a move in a similar direction, where you have a digital repository of whatever I'm holding. Do you think it remains largely unsolved, or is it something that moving towards it and already change happening?
See, the thing is, anything which comes with a regulation response, right? Basically, e-insurance and insurance repository, or kind of creating a demat of insurance accounts,
Correct.
is more a response to the regulation that this has to be done. So such products are built more out of a reactiveness rather than a proactiveness, right? Which is why, even despite using the products myself, it's not easy to use. I mean, there's a lot of friction which is involved in that. But what we have built with MidTerm is a purpose built. It's a purpose built product, purpose built platform specifically to share the information which our family members or any loved one should know in case of sudden death, or in case of some terminal illness. So which is why we call ourselves information insurance rather, right? So while we have life insurance, term insurance, we have health insurance and all, this is all to protect us against a financial loss, against
Correct.
the death and the medical issues. So what we are doing is we are protecting against the loss of information by ensuring that it reaches the right person at the right time. And that's the only purpose we are built for. And when you are built for a specific purpose, then the innovation can go deeper in that particular aspect. So we are not any side hustle, we are not any side gig in a larger scheme of things, but we are the main thing in our own scheme of things.
Got it. And I'll shift the focus a little bit here, since you've also personally dabbled with some parts of it yourself. As we are getting more and more digital with respect to all of our assets, and here you're mentioning about keeping our larger, longer term, high value possessions and assets also in the digital media and a digital foray, right? Uh, and there is a lot of chatter and talk about a lot of digital frauds, whether in the payment ecosystem or anywhere elsewhere, right? How serious do you think both of them put together? How serious do you think they are, especially in an Indian context where it is people might be using it, but we all know about the masses and how that uh, demography is, and therefore, if really start to make it mainstream, what are some of those challenges or risks that we see foresee?
See, I mean, payments risk aside, right? I worked in payments myself for entire of my career, and I also do payments consulting as one of my key revenue drivers. But specifically on the insurance and on the fraud and the risk which is happening with say loss of legacy money, it is hugely serious, right? However, just sharing of information does not bring the risk per se. It is how the information is being used, how it is addressed, and how it is adapted. So we are more at risk with all the AI and deep fakes and having the lack of knowledge of how to how to address, how to identify any fraud or any scams which happen than from the scam itself, right? So in the parallel, while we were talking about, hey, we have built Mitherv is a product or a platform built for preserving and transferring the legacy to the loved ones. We've also built a parallel platform called ScamBuster, which is used for protecting that legacy, protecting that money which we have built over the years, so we can easily identify scams through, whether it's on WhatsApp, whether it's on email, whether it's on links which we click, or whether it's on SMS. So ScamBuster kind of addresses the protecting the legacy aspect, and Meta addresses the transferring and preserving the legacy aspect.
Do you think are there any structural changes, reforms, whether policy or otherwise, that are needed to ensure that, what we're talking about, information insurance or people uh, ensuring that they have all their assets and information in one place, this starts to become mainstream on a digital media or a digital platform?
See, there needs to be a will, and the will can start with policy or it can start with the industry. But essentially, a will to inform and let people know that, hey, we have assets of your loved ones. We want you to know this exists, and we want to chase you and give what is due to you. That is something which I feel is significantly missing in the industry, which is why even in the insurance sector, there's so much of unclaimed money which is lying there. Fortunately, the regulators don't allow that money or that unclaimed money to be added to the P&L accounts. Otherwise, it could, lead to separate incentive problems. So I think when it comes to structural changes, what would be really helpful from a policy perspective is putting the best foot forward and best effort to ensure that what is due to someone is given to them, right? And one way of doing that is ensuring over a period of time, over the period of the policy itself, while the insured members or the users or the consumers are attached to you as a as a customer, their loved ones, their nominees are informed constantly of what is in existence. And as Mita, we do exactly that. We ensure that the loved ones are informed of whatever the policy is there, not just insurance, but other aspects of wealth as well, right? The banks, the fixed deposits, not just that, even loans, because sometimes loans are also an issue where the head of the family leaves a loan on the name of the family, and the ones who are left behind have to deal with the consequences of the loan left. So we address all those elements of both assets and liabilities being informed to our loved ones.
Got it. Just out of curiosity, a follow-up to what you were just saying, right? Typically, at least personally around me, as much as I've observed, some of these conversations on will and people being in the know-how of what assets and how have I planned my sort of assets to the near and dear ones typically come to light when I am in a very high age bracket and sort of I'm starting to plan on how what I want to do with those assets, right? Now, if we bring that information up front and people knowing, purely from a psychology or a human point of view, have you encountered places where individuals actually shy away from wanting to really share that information, let alone the will to do it?
Yeah. This was a feature we implemented immediately after getting the first round of feedback when we launched the beta version, right? It was like, hey, this is great. Asset sharing, information sharing is great, but I don't want to do it now. I do want to ensure that my family knows about if I have a, secret Swiss account, or if I have, some asset stashed somewhere, or I bought a, apartment with my lottery winning somewhere. I don't want my family or anyone to know about right now. So we have in fact created, a sharing version which says that a particular set of information is shared posthumously with the ones we choose. So we also like, the immediate question would be like, so how do we know whether what happens to the customer's life status? So we have a patent pending algorithm called VeriLife, where we verify basically the life status of the customer by using the concept of trusted contacts. We can choose 5 trusted contacts, and those trusted contacts would let us know what the life status of a customer is. Of course, there are many steps and processes to that, but in short, VeriLife is the algorithm which helps us understand what the life status of the customer is, and based on that, we relay the information which has been chosen by them to be shared at a particular point of time.
Got it. Interesting. Let's try and close with a bit of a twist. Yeah, we'll try and do a quick rapid fire. So I want you to say out the first thing that comes to your mind, and we'll try and keep it brief, right? Uh, the first question, one asset detail that every Indian head of family today should add to their note stroke anywhere that is visible to their immediate family members.
I think how much gold you have, because as Indians we are gold lovers. In one form or the other, we buy gold or silver, and letting our family members know would be a great service to them. While it has served us while we are alive.
One thing that you think any financial institution leader, whether it's an insurance company or otherwise, should do in the next 7 days to reduce unclaimed assets?
Uh, I think creating or creating a campaign and opening up and saying that, hey, we have this window where we are going to expedite unclaimed asset settlement. If you come to us, something which can be done every year, like we have Flipkart a big billion sale, or Amazon Prime Day, and etc. There can be like 3 to 7 days period every year where most of the companies dedicated to clearing the unclaimed assets, and that's something which every finance or every insurance leader at least should be able to execute as well.
Interesting. Last one mindset shift that you would want every, say, a 30 to 35-year-old in India to make about their financial life.
I think as soon as they accept the reality, we listen to all the financial influencers, how to double our money and how to triple our money. But as long as we are aware why we are doing that, and ensuring that why stays consistent, not just for us, but all the people we are leaving behind, that awareness will make them take better decisions than just listening to the financial influencers.
Perfect. Interesting. Thank you so much, Vishal, for the discussion today. It's great speaking to you, and I'm sure it'll be enriching for everyone who listens to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Akshay. It was a pleasure. And thank you to IIA for hosting us. Really appreciate it.